Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of Supervisors work session Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, 4:30 p.m. At Board Meeting Room, 39 Bank Street, Chatham, Virginia, 24531. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bowman?
Here.
Mr. Dalton?
Here.
Mr. Dudley? Mr. Ingram?
Here.
Mr. Whittle? Mr. Height?
Here.
Mr. Tucker?
Here. Thank you. Are there any items to be added to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask then for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. It's been moved and second for the approval of the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, cast your votes, please. That motion passes 7-0. For citizens' convenience, all work session and committee meetings are now being recorded and can be viewed in the county's Facebook and the same YouTube location as the Board of Supervisors business meetings. Please remember that the board's work session is designed for internal board and county staff communication, discussion, and work. It is not a question and answer session with the audience. Accordingly, during the work session, no questions or comments from the audience will be entertained. Respectfully, any outbursts or disorderly conduct from the audience will not be tolerated and may result in the offending person's removal from the work session. As a reminder, all county citizens and other appropriate parties as designated by the board's bylaws are permitted to make comments under the hearing of the citizens section of tonight's business meeting. At this time, we will we'll move to item 5A, PJM Power Grid presentation. Mr. Chuck Angier. Thank you, Mr. Angier, for being here this evening.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your service. And staff, thank you for your service, because you're the ones that make it all happen. I want to first welcome everybody to Ground Zero for utility scale solar projects. This is a map from a report by Joe Lurch of the Virginia Association of Counties. And on January 31st of 2024, 26.5% of permitted solar capacity was in the counties of Pennsylvania, Halifax, and Charlotte. 26.5%. Now that has changed. It's down around 20% now because so much has stopped in these counties and so much has grown in the other counties. Pennsylvania was the #1 county in the state until Charlotte approved that $800 Randolph project there. And so that bumped us to #2. Pennsylvania currently has 20 projects, 200 parcels, 18,049 acres by my count, permitted for solar capacity. But many of them are being delayed or withdrawn. Why is that happening? Well, let's take Chaco as an example. Chaco is a 908-acre facility generating 60 megawatts in another part of the county that I'm not familiar with. But anyhow, on July 14th of 2020, they were granted a special use permit. Condition 14 of that special use permit stated that if they failed to begin construction within 3 years, they would lose a special use permit. And then state law gives them the right to another extension, which will be until July 1st of 2025. So on January 7th, they came before the Planning Commission requesting an amendment to their original plan. And the reason is because due to unforeseen delays in the permitting process, They're requesting to amend the special use permit to grant additional time to begin construction. And the reason it is because they can't get permitting to connect with PJM, which is the regional powerhouse. And almost 5 years have elapsed now for Chaco. So what is PJM and what is the fuss? PJM is a regional transmission organization. I'm sorry, I was guessing who could see what here. That one stinks, that one's okay. I guess these are all right. A regional transmission organization that coordinates the movement of wholesale electricity in all or part of 13 states in the District of Columbia. PJM is the largest regional transmission organization in the country, services most of the Northeast. And the takeaway is this: their primary task is to ensure the safety, reliability, and security of the bulk electric power system. This is the scope of their operations, from all the way over in northern Illinois, the Chicago area, all the way over to the East Coast, and down as far south as the southeast North Carolina. Again, they're the biggest in the country. PJM oversees the interconnection to the grid of new and upgraded generation resources, performing planning analyses and coordinating with transmission owners to ensure system reliability and generation deliverability to all PJM customers. Here's the takeaway point. As renewable generation development has soared, the type of new projects has shifted over the past few years from a limited number of large thermal resources to thousands of requests for renewable, smaller, dispersed, and I might add, fickle renewable energy projects. By the way, this is all being taken from PJM's website. This is not stuff I came up with. Remember, the energy demand in the PJM region is skyrocketing for several reasons, not the least of which is the huge demand from technology, EI data centers. And as many of you know, or I've said before, in Dominion's 2023 annual report, they stated that 24% of the revenue came from data centers. 24%. Now, I would bet that 5 years before that, nobody even knew what a data center was. And that number has grown. I don't have it in front of me, but that number has certainly grown also. And because of this, the average interconnection costs have soared by an 8-fold increase in the last 2 years. And PJM's interconnection charges have gone up, obviously. So we've got battery storage, or what they call energy storage. It's going to cost $335 per kilowatt to connect to PJM. Solar is going to be $253 per kilowatt. Then you've got onshore wind and offshore wind at 136 and 385 kilowatts, but all of them pale in comparison to what natural gas is at only $24 per kilowatt. This is the interconnection fee with PJM. So why the painful premium? Chaco, let's take Chaco as an example. 60 megawatts, $1,000 kilowatts per megawatt gives us 60,000 kilowatts at $253 per kilowatt. Their interconnect fee is going to be $15.18 million, which is multiples of what it was probably when they began this project. And this might be one of the reasons why so many of these solar outfits are having difficulty with their money. So again, why the painful premium for renewables? Let's look at PJM. A lot of numbers there, but don't worry about it. We're not going to go through them all. Not every one of them. I might skip a couple. The first two columns is the PJM megawatt hours generated in 2020 and 2024. The second two columns are the change from 20 to 2024, both in units and percentages. And the third column is the actual percentage of megawatts generated by the different fuels for 2020 and 2024. Beginning with natural gas. Natural gas generated 368 million megawatts in 2024, an increase of 15.9%, and it is producing 43.7% of PJM's energy. Nuclear is at 272 million megawatt hours, a decrease of 1.4%, which is insignificant, and it's generating 32.31% of PJM's power. Third, believe it or not, is coal at 122 million megawatts, down 21.6%, obviously because we are disincentivizing coal. But it's still producing 14.51% of their power. Then we've got wind, up 19.4%. I'm sorry. Those three sectors produce 90.49% of PJM's energy. Then we've got wind, up 19.4% because we're incentivizing wind, but it's only producing 3.68% of the power. Solar has increased 369% in the 4 years between 20 and 2024, but they're still only producing 1.91%. And believe it or not, hydroelectric is only producing 1.89%. So they've got a whole mix of things with the bulk of their energy coming from traditional energy, gas, nuclear, and coal. In fact, a source in Wikipedia claims that PJM is the only regional transmission organization which connected more fossil generation than renewables. So PJM is struggling to adopt green energy. Well, we need to know why. Let me first quickly explain two trade terms to you to help understand it. The first is nameplate capacity. Nameplate capacity is the maximum rated output of a generator or other electric power production equipment under specific conditions designated by the manufacturer. In other words, it's what the manufacturer says it will put out under optimal conditions. The nameplate capacity for Smith Mountain Dam is 560 megawatts, and that's over half of the capacity of, well, that's about the same capacity as 12,000 acres of our solar farms. And it is also about 1/6 the power that Balico is shooting for in their project. Of course, you got to let water out of it 24/7 in order to get that capacity. But the nice thing about it is we can turn it on and off at will, just a matter of flipping a valve. And also, Smith Mountain is pumped storage, so it's not really a fair comparison, but I wanted to put that in there because they're local. Then we got capacity factor. And capacity factor is basically the ratio of the energy produced compared to the nameplate capacity. I don't know what the capacity factor is at Smith Mountain Dam because I couldn't get my hands on it. And again, it's pumped storage, so it makes a difference. It would make a difference. It would bias it. Let's look at the capacity factors of some different energy sources in America right now. This is 2024. Nuclear has the highest capacity factor, 92%. And that's because, number one, it takes a while to get that thing going. It takes a long time to shut it down, but once it's going steady. So it's going to put out all the time. So that's why they've got the highest capacity factor in the country. Next is geothermal at 65%, and that's a little different because that geothermal is running all the time. It's just a question of whether we tap into it or not. Then we've got other gas, which I'm not exactly sure what that is. We've got natural gas combined cycle, which is the most efficient use of natural gas, and that's coming in at about 58.7% capacity. We've got coal even at 42.6%, and that's probably way down from where it used to be, but that's because we're trying to use it less and less. Hydroelectric is 34.5%, wind at 34%, and solar at 23.4%. This is photovoltaic, not thermal. And then we've got three other natural gases down there. Here's the key, though. Nuclear goes all the time. Geothermal you can tap into. Natural gas, you can pretty much turn it on and off as you need it. Coal, that's a little different story. Hydroelectric is on demand. Wind, it does possibly produce energy when the sun's not shining. But solar is the only one of all those components that we cannot control. It's going to produce power maybe when the sun's shining. It definitely will not produce power when the sun's not shining. And as I mentioned, PJM is struggling to adopt new energy. Well, and why is that? And I'm going to suggest 4 reasons. First of all, is simple volume. This is a map of what's called the PJM interconnection queue as of February 2nd. Every dot on that map is a request to join the PJM network. Somebody's got a good name for that reddish color. I don't know what it is, but that would be wind request to join the PJM interconnection, and all the yellow ones are solar. This is in the northeast where we have no telling how many people. So, and again, that's compared to a few thermal sources back in the old days compared to that. As of Sunday, day before yesterday, 9 p.m., PJM had 2,165 active interconnection requests. 1,348 of them are solar requests. 13 of them are in Pennsylvania, 13 in Halifax, and 8 in Charlotte County. And Dave Arnold provided me with this chart, which you can't see on there. You ought to be able to just turn that thing off. And those numbers coincide with what Dave sent me. We have eight active and in operation solar facilities. They're producing power. What I want to know is, are they producing power and is it going on the grid? Don't know. We have 4 in plan review for construction with extensions, 4 under construction. What does that mean? Some tell me all it means is somebody's taken a skid steer and parked on the property. That's considered under construction, so that gives them the gets them in the deadline. 4 of them are SUP approved and 3 with extension. So we see a number of our own facilities are requesting extensions, and I've kind of just shown you the reason why. A third reason PJM is struggling might be stability. This is, believe it or not, there's 3 lines there. What this is a chart of nuclear power generation through PJM for a time frame beginning January 2nd to January 29th of this year. And if you'll notice, each of the lines, blue is 10 a.m. of each day, orange is 2 p.m. of each day, and the green is 4 p.m. of each day. So nuclear is pretty much all in line with each other. There's a big dip there in January and a smaller one back around the 16th, a smaller one early in the month, and I'm going to suggest that that was the major storm that went through the Northeast that shut everything down. Because if people aren't using power, they're not generating power. Otherwise, it would probably have been a straight line through there. But we see the consistency there, and remember, PJM's mission is to provide consistent, reliable, uninterrupted energy. Now let's look at solar for the same time period. Again, the blue line is 10 a.m., the orange line is 2 p.m., and the green line, look at that green line down on the bottom, that's 4 p.m. in January. And of course, by the end of the day, it's down to flat line to 0. So, if your job was to stabilize the electrical supply to the biggest organization in the Northeast, do you really want to incorporate something like that in your portfolio? I don't think so. I think it's being done with a lot of mandates. And then the fourth possible reason that PJM is struggling with renewables could be infrastructure. And this just fell in my lap yesterday morning. Timeline extended for 4 Charlotte County solar projects. PJM determined that a new 230 kilovolt line was needed to service those projects. Some developers have recently withdrawn projects that were in PJM's queue to connect to the grid, so that means that that line might not be necessary. But it was determined that for those 4 projects, PJM said it would take $325 million and 42 to 48 months to build that power line into those projects. I don't remember a lot of talk about any of that with any of these facilities. And the 800 megawatt Randolph project, the 21,000 acre one, does not require a new transmission line, and they estimate to be in service with operating dates of 2030, 31, and 32 for its 3 phases. And the reason I brought that up is because that's also the timeline that the proponents of green energy are saying that there's a good chance that we'll have substantial nuclear and other options online. Keep in mind that the VCA requires that APCO and Dominion, if they fail to meet the renewable goals, they will be fined to the tune of $450 million, and that looks like it's going to happen this year, and can charge that directly to their customers with no authority or permission from state agencies. A bill was introduced to strike that rule. I think it was introduced by Bill Stanley. Can't recall for sure. That rule never made it out of committee. So right now, APCO and Dominion can charge it back to the customers. Through conversations with renewable proponents in Richmond, I'm convinced that those proponents, like most of their ilk, are counting on the transition to nuclear and other technologies to be in full swing by the 2030s, replacing fossil fuel. And judging by the rapid advancements in those technologies, they might be right. They also, admittedly, to me, viewed solar as a temporary transition to that improved technology. Government is the epitome of fickleness. Just think of how the stroke of the pen in Washington and Richmond could change everything that we're talking about. Those same fickle handlers are placing greater demands for power on the grid while also mandating that we meet that demand with technology that's as fickle as they are. They command us to condemn millions of acres of crop and forest land to permanent desolation for a temporary, fickle, unproven technology of questionable longevity. So much of it we have no control over. How can we or APCO or Dominion be held responsible for the challenges that face PJM? We must consider how long it will take and how much it will cost for the 13 Pennsylvania County facilities to connect to PJM. What happens in the interim? Is it time to start rejecting these boondoggles? And this, I got this like 5 minutes before I left the house. It was on Cardinal News this morning. Mecklenburg County draws the line on solar. Deeds warns this could lead to state mandates, and we've all heard about them in this last session. A Southside County moves to block utility-scale solar as concerns are rising about that Virginia may have trouble meeting its renewable energy goals. Well, it's going to have trouble meeting its renewable energy goals when you can't connect to the network.
Right.
So, this is Craig Deeds. He's from around Charlottesville somewhere, one of the senators. So they're going to hold us, hold everybody in the state responsible for not connecting to the grid as they want us to, simply because we can't. It can't be done, at least not in the time frame they want. So I guess they're going to mandate it. And of course, you can't mandate something that can't be done.
That's right.
You got to give it time. And that's all I have. I just kind of hope it might have given some new information to some folks. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Angier. Any questions for Mr. Angier?
Good.
Great,
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you, Chuck.
Hang on, Mr. Angier, got one quick question.
In the midst of everything you shared, and I appreciate that, what's your solution?
Well, we need to get rid of the Virginia Clean Economy Act. And there's motions in force to do that, but then, in play to do that. But then again, we got to realize, as much as we hate to admit it, Virginia is run by the 9 counties on the upper rim of Washington, D.C. and Richmond. And they outnumber us. And they're already full of this, so that's why they're shifting all of it down here. I would like to see us, we've already exceeded the threshold of solar farms according to the solar ordinance. I don't see that growing any further unless, like Deed says, he's going to give us a mandate and make us do it. Because the legislation that failed this year would have basically trashed our solar ordinance and given the state control of telling us what to do. That's not an answer, but if we could get rid of the Virginia Clean Economy Act, that would be the end of it.
Yeah, I know you might be surprised at me saying this, but you know we've been hit quite a bit over solar issues, and you know going back with the prior board, we sort of slammed on brakes and changed the distance between farms from 5 to 1 and back up to 5. I was promoting 10. And also the percentage within any specific zoning district. But I think for the most part, you know, we're tired of it. And the promised revenue that was shared when I came on this board in 2020. I'm still waiting on that paycheck to come in. It just hasn't done it. So I appreciate your presentation, sir. Thank you.
May I add one thing about the taxes? I studied the Whitehorn project out in Gretna, and I'm of the opinion that, well, we know that they require, all of the work they've done there and all the assets they put in is counted as real estate. So from what I can tell, their real estate tax has skyrocketed compared to what it was being paid under the, as a farm. So there may be some revenue coming in from that. There's other people here that can answer better than I can that. But that, on that one case, there should be some extra revenue coming in on the side of taxes. I don't know anything about profit sharing or anything like that. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Mr. Angier. Move to 5B, Haven of the Dan River presentation. Ms. Shannon Hendricks. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to come talk to you today. I have been with the Haven of the Dan River region, which is your domestic and sexual abuse shelter located in Danville, Virginia, now for 8
Could you
months.
pick that mic up just a little bit? They just was getting me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have been here for
Sorry.
around 8 months, and I wanted to kind of share with you the needs of what the shelter has and the services that we offer and the communities for which we serve. We serve primarily Danville City and Pittsylvania County. 30% of what we've had in the last 6 months has come from Pittsylvania County, Chatham, and Gretna areas. We do a whole lot of partnerships with different businesses to try to meet the needs of the people that come into our shelter. We get, I hate to say a lot of business, but a lot of referrals from Gretna ER. They are the ones with the forensic nurses that can service your sexual violence folks when these bad things happen. So we partner very closely with them, and we get a lot of people from this area that have experienced domestic and sexual violence. And again, the statistics show roughly 30% of what we have has come from this area in Pennsylvania County. I'd like to tell you a little bit about the layout of our shelter. Our shelter is small. We only have 4 bedrooms that we can house people in, with the occupancy of 10 people. We have bunk beds in each room, so you have a lady on the top and a lady on the bottom, and you could have a child in a crib. We can service 10 comfortably. After it gets over that, we have to look elsewhere to try to help our people, because I want in no way to turn our people away. And that sometimes can mean that you got to put the person in a motel. Well, you know, it used to be that some of the motels in Danville, you could house them easily for $100 a night. That's unheard of in any motel in Danville now. The cheapest rate I've been able to get for our victims, we like to call them our survivors, is $660 for 5 nights. That, you know, that's hard to do. On a small budget, that's very hard to do. But we're committed to not turn these people away. We're here to help them. We're not here to turn them away. I'd like to tell you about some of our services. We currently have peer group sessions for sexual and domestic violence. They are operated right now at the Warming Center in Danville, Virginia. They house 2 of them. And now I've gotten the request to bring them to the housing developments in Danville. There is a need for that kind of service there. It's a place where they can come together and talk about their trauma and feel like they have someone who will listen to them and maybe provide guidance to help them. We also have employed a life skill counselor. She is part-time with me. This is new to us. We didn't have this beforehand. And when someone comes into our shelter, my theory is that we want to treat the whole person. We don't want to bring them there and say, you've got a bed for 30 days, because what have you really done? You've done nothing. You've not given them the tools to go on to better themselves and do what they need to do to heal from their trauma. So we partner with several people who can help us with that, and the Life Skill Council is very vital. She actually sees people currently that are in Pennsylvania County as well as Danville, Virginia. We allow them at least 2 visits a week while they're in our shelter, and after they leave our shelter, we follow them for an additional 2 visits. We want to make sure that that person has the tools and has the support to go back out into the community and at least know how to start. And that includes housing. We also obtain housing for our victims as best we can. You know, I can take a person to their new house and set them there with nothing, with no support, no family, and what have I done? I've done nothing. They're going to return to our shelter without the other services that we need to protect our victims, or as we like to call them, survivors. We've been blessed. We have gotten housing for 8 within the last 2 months with partners. When I came here, I seen the need for what's called transitional housing. When my ladies leave the shelter, they may be able to pay $400 a month rent, $500 a month rent. They can't pay $800, $1,200, $1,400 rent for an apartment. So I've been able to partner with some local landlords and some housing people in Danville who have kind of reduced the rates a little bit and allow us to place my victims or survivors in housing. Another part that we do, like I said, is the counseling, but we don't stop with just our life skill counselor. We also partner with other licensed certified counselors who can provide a level of service that my counselor cannot. This is not free. It does cost, but it is a need. Again, we want to treat the whole person and have the person ready to go back into the community, be productive, feel safe. We currently partner with Play Your Way Therapy up here in Chatham. We currently use her. Very good, very sweet, very nice lady. So we try to put some of the business back in the community, and we try to bring the services to the area that the victims and their support people are in. We also link them with God's Storehouse. We do their Medicaid applications. We link them with health care. We accompany them to court. We help them get protective orders. And there's some days we just sit there and talk while they cry. And that can go on and on and on. So I say this to say, it breaks my heart to think that we've got a citizen of either of our counties that we have to turn away. And sometimes that does have to happen. My shelter is only so big. I am on my long wish list looking for maybe a second shelter or a bigger location so that we can service more people. Some of the things that we're starting to bring to the shelter is the financial literacy piece. Most of my people, they don't even know how to do a checkbook. They have no budget. They get lost in all of that. We want to bring that piece. We also work with them on job readiness. That could mean clothing for interviews. It can mean creation of the resume. It means mock interviews. It also means me going to partners and say, hey, I got this really nice person here who I think will be a fit for your entity. And we've also gained some employment helping them do that. So we're proud of that. We also try to help them with GEDs, college educations, or anything that we can. So far today, just a little statistical data, we have answered in 6 months 486 hotline calls. Now, what is a hotline call? A lady or a man, I don't want to say just lady, is a victim of abuse. So they call our shelter, how can you help me? Please help me. And that is when we start the referral for services if they choose not to leave the home. I will come out in public and meet with them. I've met with them at restaurants. I've met with them on the side of the road. I've met with them wherever we need to go to try to help that victim so that we can give them direction and moving forward. In the last 6 months, we've had 91 clients that are in shelter, that have received in-shelter nights there. 78 of those were for domestic violence, with 14 of those being children. The youngest one I've had is 3 months. The oldest one I've had is 68. It's all races, it's all ages. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how much money you don't have. Domestic violence and sexual violence, it's everywhere. And with the casino having come here, we are also seeing, and I have assisted, trafficking, human trafficking. That is very much in our area, and they are usually your sexual abuse victims. We can't turn those away. We have to be here to help those. I have had 4 males to date in the last 6 months. We have nowhere to put our our victims. The shelter, we can't put them in there with the women and the children. And sometimes we cannot afford to put them in a hotel. What I have been able to do is work with our local warming shelter, and bless his heart, he will help me with that as that does arrive. You know, people think, well, there's plenty of rooms because, the House of Hope, they can go to the House of Hope. No, they cannot go to the House of Hope. People don't understand. The House of Hope, even though it has maybe 40 plus beds, it's a much bigger entity, they will not take a victim of domestic or sexual violence under any circumstances. So I cannot send them my overflow, but I cannot just turn them away. So we do the best we can do to help everyone. Sexual violence, we've had 13 in the last 4 months. One of those was a veteran. We were able to place the veteran into housing, into the Danville area, and we're thankful for that. Sexual victims, they require a whole lot more counseling. They require a whole lot more services, and they're generally slower for us to help heal and get back out in the community. And again, we've had 91 clients during this time period, and 30% I can actually trace back to Chatham and Gretna. Now, long-term plans, what I'd like to see, what we need, is a bigger shelter or a second shelter or a place to house our men. Our men are at a disadvantage because they're male, because we can't house them and we don't have the facility to do it. To me, that's urgent. We need to take care of our people, male or female. Transitional housing, housing at a lesser rate, maybe something they can stay in for 3 months at a lesser rate, and then they transition back into whatever walk of life they can afford and they choose. Funds to cover lawn care, at $125 a pop every 2 weeks, those are little bits that add up. Insurances for our facility come in at about $13,000 a year because we are labeled as high risk. I say this and I bring this to your attention just to let you know that we're here. The Haven is here. And we're going to continue to service Gretna and Pennsylvania County. Our services aren't going to stop. I go out and do public speaking events. I write grants. I do everything I do to try to make sure that we can go forward with what we're doing. I will say that I was notified that we're being cut $80,000 this year. Those were COVID funds that are not going to be renewed, and they will just go back into the state coffers. $80,000 for us is detrimental. We could help so many people. Again, we want to treat the whole person, not just give them a place to stay for 30 days and say, bye, see you. We provide clothes for them. Our cabinets are full of food. We buy their medications. We do the very best we can do with what we have. And I would like to maybe ask y'all to entertain the thought of seeing if there's any funding that it can assist us with helping us take care of your local residents. I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Any questions from the board? Yes, sir, Mr. Bowman.
Ms. Hendricks, just clarification, did you say 8,000 of CARES funding or 80,000?
I'm sorry, say that again?
You said the CARES funding had been pulled back by the state?
Our grant was 80,000 and it will not be renewed.
80,000?
80.
Okay, I thought you said
80,
8.
yes.
Okay, all right. And one other question. Under the domestic abuse piece here, and the reason I ask this because somebody approached me a couple of days ago about this, and it had to do with the casino. And evidently, I don't go to the casino, I don't gamble, but I'm sure a lot of people do. There was a person that spent the last dime she had, she was married, spent the last dime she had playing whatever she did at the casino, cards or those slots or whatever. Anyway, her and her husband split. He kicked her out of the house. She had nowhere to go and all that. Are you seeing any of that from the casino? People coming in looking for help?
We do see that from the casino, and a lot of what I've seen from the casino in that type of situation, excuse me, are the employees. It is domestic abuse between the families that are employees, and we've had quite a large number of that. So what I did is I went up and talked to HR at the casino, introduced myself. I took them some brochures. I have told them that if I can come and talk to their staff, just in a staff meeting, just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I'll be happy to give them the resources so that, number one, they will have it. And number two, I'm hoping if I can get the resources in there, their staff can spot people who are victims of sexual or domestic violence and get them to me.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Dudley.
Yes, sir. Thank you for what you do. Good presentation. That's just a wonderful organization. Did you sit down with the casino and possibly ask them as well for maybe some help?
I'm not going to lie, I'm going to tell you the truth of
Okay,
that story.
okay, yeah.
Before I came here, apparently 2 years ago, the casino had given the Haven of the Dan River region some money under a different director, under a different board, and apparently when she moved on, they called to ask what happened with their money, and nobody would talk to them. I have went and met with them. They have encouraged me, after meeting with me many times, to go ahead and write for grants, that we will be, considered. They understand what we are now opposed to what we were. So I'm not giving up on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving to item 6, staff committee and or constitutional officers reports. I see none. All right. Any discussion on behalf of the board? Okay, if not, we're getting ready to move to item 8, closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Read us in, please.
There are 3 matters designated for closed session today, which are: first, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. Legal authority, Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711A5. Subject matter, unannounced prospective businesses and industries. Purpose, general economic development projects update. Second matter is consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal services by such counsel. Legal authority, Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711A8. Subject matters, solid waste contracts and rates, and Williams Transco Pipeline. Purpose, legal counsel, contract consultation. And the third and last matter is consultation with legal counsel and briefings of staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing is in open meetings would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. For the purposes of this subdivision, probable litigation means litigation that has been specifically threatened or on which the public body or its legal counsel has a reasonable basis to believe will be commenced or by or against a known party. Nothing in the subdivision shall be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body is in attendance or is consulted on a matter. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.23711A7, subject matter opioid litigation update. Purpose, legal counsel consultation. Mr. Chairman, now be appropriate to entertain a motion, second discussion, and vote regarding closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I'll ask for that motion to move to closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion and we go into closed session.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
second
Dalton.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Any discussion? If not, cast your votes. Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. Let's retire, gentlemen.
let's get this thing done.
Can we come to order, please? Can we come to order, please? Mr. Evans, would you read us back in?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that at the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors work session on March the 18th, 2025, the board hereby certifies by a recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any board member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the act, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the board's meetings. We will now have a roll call vote regarding said certification of closed session. Mr. Bowman.
Yes.
Mr. Dalton.
Yes.
Mr. Dudley.
Yes.
Mr. Ingram.
Yes.
Mr. Whittle.
Yes.
Mr. Height.
Yes.
Mr. Tucker.